Take Back Your Health Now, Episode 79.
You're listening to the Take Back Your Health Now podcast, the show that interviews the top doctors, athletes, trainers, and entrepreneurs to help you find the holy grail of health. Now here's your host, Dr. Dan Margolin.
Hi, this is Dr. Dan Margolin with another segment of Take Back Your Health Now, where we pull out all the stops in search of health's holy grail. This is one of the most exciting episodes we have. We have JJ Virgin. She is a celebrity nutrition and fitness expert. JJ teaches clients how to lose weight and master their mindset so they can lead bigger, better lives. She's also the author of four New York Times bestsellers: The Virgin Diet, the Virgin Diet Cookbook, JJ Virgin's Sugar Impact Diet, and JJ Virgin's Sugar Impact Diet Cookbook. Her memoir, Miracle Mindset, A Mother, Her Son, and Life's Hardest Lessons, explores the powerful lessons in strength and positivity that she learned after her son Grant was the victim of a brutal hit-and-run accident. JJ hosts the popular JJ Virgin Lifestyle Show podcast and regularly writes for Huffington Post, Rodale Wellness, and other major blogs and magazines. She's also a frequent guest on TV and radio and speaks at major events. In addition to her work with nutrition and fitness, JJ is also a business coach and founded the premier health entrepreneur event and community, the Mindshare Summit. JJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here, Dan.
Boy, that is some bio. You got a lot of things going on, huh?
Yeah, well, it keeps me out of trouble.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, JJ, just do me a favor. So, take us back to the beginning a little bit. How did you get involved in nutrition? How did you get started with all this?
You know, I grew up in Berkeley, California. Like, farm to table is just what that whole culture is about, except my mother raised me on Captain Crunch and Pop-Tarts. But I rebelled at age 12. I started going to the health food stores, and I was a dancer, and I started teaching calisthenics. I'm so dating myself. I taught aerobics at Richard Simmons' insane asylum or anatomy asylum. And so I was always, into health and nutrition. And I graduated from college, went directly into grad school in exercise science, and kind of got all the way up into my doctoral school. And I realized that you can't exercise enough to compensate for eating a bunch of crap. Right. And back then it was like that big movement of that was when all the health clubs first started, and there were the celebrity aerobics instructors, and, everyone was working out to lose weight, and they weren't really losing weight because they were eating a bunch of garbage.
Right, absolutely.
Oh yeah. When I was at Richard Simmons, we were literally told, hey, the anatomy asylum was next door to a pizza place.
Get out of here.
No kidding. I mean, what crazy thing that was. And they said, listen, don't teach class and go next door. Please don't let our students see you. We're like, all right.
Okay.
But I really realized.
Was Richard Simmons actually there?
He was there. He wasn't there all the time, but I remember him coming in because I had to teach an aerobics class in a toga.
Come on. No way.
No. He was a riot. I mean, talk about what an inspiring guy he was. Look what he did. He started a whole movement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And he had some energy also.
Oh, he did. He was that. I remember just staring at him going, this guy really is this way. Like, this is who he is. It's crazy.
So he wasn't putting that on. That was really who he was. Wow. Okay. You always, you wonder with that. You wonder when you see celebrities like that. Is that?
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of celebrities, and it's interesting because it tends to be that the more successful people are very congruent.
Yes. Yeah.
Not an accident there, right?
You know what? I find the exact same thing. No question about it. Well, JJ, let me so jumping into one of your books here, the Miracle Mindset. You had a rough time. Your son had a rough time. Could you just go into a little bit about that?
Yeah, my son, when he was 16, I have two boys. They're a year apart, so 15 and 16. And when my son was 16, it was just before the Virgin Diet was coming out. And he was crossing the street at dusk. He got hit by a car. It was a hit and run, literally left for dead in the street. He was airlifted to the local hospital. He had a torn aorta. That kills 90% of the people on the scene. I mean, it was amazing he got to the hospital. And he had multiple brain bleeds and 13 fractures. Literally, Dan, he was like covered. Half his body was road rash, like glass and gravel sticking out of him. And he looked just raw. And then bones sticking through his skin. And when we got to the first hospital in Palm Springs, the doctor said that he had to have a very specialized surgery that they couldn't do there because he had brain bleeds and a torn aorta. But he'd never survive an airlift. And even if he were to survive an airlift, he probably wouldn't survive that surgery. And even if he were to survive both, he'd be so brain damaged it wouldn't be worth it. And we were all standing listening to the doctor, looking at him. And my 15-year-old looks at him and says, so maybe a 0.25% chance he'd make it. And the doctor said, yeah, that sounds about right, son. And my 15-year-old looks at him and goes, well, we'll take those odds.
Wow.
He looked at me. He's like, well, that's not zero, And so it was a really tough time because here I had a book coming out in a month that I'd invested everything in and borrowed, and it had to go because I'm the primary financial support for the family. And I remember looking at my son thinking, whatever he needs to be 110%, I'm going to get him. And hey, let's face it, most of the stuff you have to do for your health is not, I think if we stopped thinking about what's insurance going to pay for and versus I'm taking personal responsibility for my health and what do I need to be my healthiest, it's crazy to think that we make decisions about the most important asset we have based on whether insurance will pay for it or not. That's like just a paradigm that needs to be flipped. Yeah. But I knew that was not how I was going to approach this with Grant, because literally my thought process was, I'm going to help him be 110%. This will be the best thing that ever happened to him. Now, I didn't think that first night. That first night I was absolutely freaking out. So let's be real. I was scared to death.
I can't even imagine. I have a 9-year-old daughter. I can't.
I know. I know.
My God,
don't imagine. It's like a parent's worth. So, but all we needed was hope. We had hope. And I literally stood once we got to the next hospital, which he survived the airlift and survived the surgery. And now he was in a deep coma and, with all these casts, everything was cast except for one hand. And I remember looking at him and telling him that he was going to be 110%. I just needed him to fight. And I'm thinking to myself, I am going to have to be here and make the right decisions, like life and death decisions, and be able to focus. UCLA, I was there and they gave me a room to do my book interviews in. And I'm thinking, man, I have no margin for error. I can't get sick because they won't let me in. He's got tubes out of everywhere, including his brain, massive infection risk. The only way I'm going to be able to pull this off is if I put myself first. They talk about it on the plane, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, right? Like if I'm going to be this warrior mom and take care of my family, the way I do it, and I think this is such a key important message, is I put myself first.
Wow.
And that's the exact opposite of what we all tend to do. We tend to put ourselves on the back burner. But like me showing up as my very best self was how I managed to save my son, make that book a New York Times bestseller that then could support us in our journey for taking back his, health to 110%. And if I hadn't been able to show up at that level, none of this would have happened.
It's so amazing. It's so, I got to tell you, I talk to so many people, even as patients in my own practice and stuff, and you see in life that people go through certain things and they're either the cause or the effect viewpoint. You know what I mean? They either take it by the reins and they go, you know what, we're going to make this happen, or they just go completely down tone and they're done. And, it's rough, but I'm so impressed with what you did. How's he doing?
He is better than before the accident. That was the whole goal. It's been a wild ride helping someone come out of a brain injury. There's so much misinformation there. At the hospital, I was told there was nothing that we could do, that now we wait. And I was like, well, I'm not very patient, not known for being patient. But I also knew that was not right, that there is so much that you can do to heal the brain, and you don't wait. That's what you don't want to do.
Right.
And so I was smuggling in fish oil behind their backs, doing high-dose fish oil, doing progesterone.
I read something about that made the papers also, right? I saw that you had brought in, how much fish oil were you giving them? And what is the point of
20 grams. Fish oil basically is putting out the inflammation in the brain and helping the brain rebuild. I mean, your brain is, we're fatheads, right? And it's
Right.
the type of fat that we need is omega-3 fat. So we were overloading the system so that it could put out the fire and help it heal. It gave it what it needed to do that. Progesterone reduces inflammation. We were doing essential oils because that's the fastest way straight up into the brain. And then as soon as he spit out his feeding tube, which he spit out his feeding tube, just shows you how someone just is who they are. I told him on a Sunday we had to wait till Monday when the doctors came in, and he hacked it up. I was like, or we don't have to wait. You can do it now. He couldn't talk, but he was like, going to get this out. I'm like, all right, okay, well, we're good. But then I had a NutriBullet, and I was like whipping up all sorts of stuff for him. And the nurses were like, we can't believe you're doing this. I'm like, I can't believe everybody isn't doing this.
Wow.
Since then, we've done stem cells straight into his spine. We've had his own stem cells drawn and grown and ejected into his spine. Total game changer. We've done hyperbaric, CBD, another amazing thing, neurofeedback. A lot of meditation. I mean, he does ground. It's interesting because stuff like he naturally started doing art. He started walking out in the dirt. I'm like, what's he doing out there in the dirt? And gardening. And he started meditating. This was a video playing teenage boy before. Now he's like completely like, what's my purpose? And I need to meditate. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, it's been amazing to see. And intuitively, he like knew a lot of stuff. He goes, I can heal this. I'm like, all right. Okay. So he's been doing his part, which I think is so critical, is we all like the whole model we have for healthcare right now is absolutely backwards. Like it has to start with you taking responsibility for your health. Insurance should be for catastrophic events. Everything else, like we shouldn't ever look at what insurance is going to pay. Like look at what you need to do for your food. Look at what you need to do in terms of like mindfulness, what you need to do to move, how you can connect with other people. Probably the biggest danger to our health right now is our social isolation.
Yeah.
The lack of connection. Do you know they correlated social isolation as the equivalent to your health of smoking 15 cigarettes a day?
Wow.
I
when
know.
you say social isolation, you mean like somebody being on the internet or playing games all day by themselves.
Right.
Yeah, no.
People who just aren't connected, who have like, I call it the faux friends, the whole internet thing. That's not being with someone, touching someone, hugging someone, and, laughing with friends. That
feels
stuff
different.
We used to
Totally
do.
feels different. Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
No question about it. Well, I got to tell you, years ago, I remember being in my 20s, and there was I worked out with this trainer who was probably in his early 50s, and he said, Danny, because I'm going to tell you something. He goes, because I said, why do you work out so hard? And this guy was in amazing shape. And he said, Danny goes, I recognize that I could spend the time in the gym now, or I could spend it in the doctor's offices later. He goes, it doesn't matter. I just had to decide where I wanted to spend my time. And that's never left me. I always thought about that. And it's very much what you're saying, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It's that same thing of like, well, I don't want to spend money on that test. I'm like, well, you could spend the money and take supplements now, or you can like, and have great quality of life, or you can like spend it later, but you're going to spend it. So invest in yourself, right?
Yeah, it seems like our medical system is designed really to treat the symptoms, but prior to the symptoms coming up, there's functions that start to get limited that we could pick up, and we could probably catch them way before those symptoms show up. In other words, the symptoms are almost towards the end of the line kind of thing. You know what I mean?
They definitely are. Look at diabetes. Like, does someone wake up one day diabetic?
You tell me, like, how does that work? What do you find?
That is a long process to get to there. And all along the way, it's showing up in your energy. It's showing up in how you gain weight. It's showing up in your triglycerides, your HDL, your blood glucose, your insulin, your vitamin D. It's showing up all over the place. But we wait and wait and wait and wait until the number hits the point where you can take a medication. We watch all the way along. And by the way, it was the habits that dictated those hormones that dictated the ultimate health problem. So you start back with hacking the habits.
Right. Well, you wrote a whole book on this. You wrote a whole book on the sugar impact diet, right? And that the 7 hidden sugars and all these kind of things. Talk to us about that a little bit. Talk to us about diabetes and the impact of sugar and how we would recognize it early and that type of thing.
Yeah, I wrote the sugar impact diet after I wrote the Virgin Diet, because the Virgin Diet was all about food intolerance and how food intolerance can cause. I talked there specifically about weight gain, but really food intolerance is what's behind autoimmune disease. And autoimmune disease is the biggest overall disease umbrella in the world. Like it is it. And the triggers for it are gluten and dairy and soy and corn. I mean, those are the triggers. So back off of those, right? So, but then when I wrote that book, one of the foods I said, you need to pull out was sugar. Well, wow, that's a confusing topic because people didn't understand. Well, they're like, well, but what about honey? Honey's natural. Well, what about like Splenda? It's not sugar. It's like, so I was like, all right, clearly I need to address this as its own thing.
Right.
And, I'm always looking for those things that you can do that can give you a quick win. Because I think for so many of us, it's like no one's sitting there going, I think I'm just going to live on Pop-Tarts and see what it does to my body. No, people aren't doing that. They want, right? I mean, that's not most people. People want to be healthy. They're just absolutely confused by the ridiculous amount of misinformation. Like latest one is this silly American Heart Association study who literally said have corn oil. I mean, really, American Heart Association who puts their stamp of approval on Cocoa Puffs? Really? So, I mean, this is the problem we have out there. There's so much misinformation out there that it's not that people don't want to be healthy. They just don't know what to believe right now. And I always say, follow the money. That American Heart Association study that just came out that said, that coconut oil is bad. You should have corn oil, like the most pro-inflammatory crappy thing out there.
Is that what they said?
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
Yes. Shame on you, American Heart Association. Shame on you. You put your stamp of approval on Cocoa Puffs. Who would listen to this? Follow this stuff. I mean, that is like Cocoa Puffs.
It's unbelievable. This is unbelievable. Like, this is the danger of putting these giant organizations there that we're all supposed to bow down to because you can get them paid off. I mean, it doesn't make any sense that they would do that.
I know. It's upsetting because here you have the average person who's trying to be healthy. They're following this like, oh, see, I'm supposed to eat low fat and I should have these snack packs and I'll have whole grains. And they're going, but I'm lowering my calories. I'm doing what they told me to do, which is eat less, exercise more, which we know always sets you up to fail. That our body's not a bank account. It's a chemistry lab. Food's information. Is the food telling you to store fat or burn it? Is it telling you to become diabetic or ultimately healthy? Because food's doing that to you. And so that's why
JJ, let me ask you, you're not going to tell me that Diet Pepsi is not good for you then, are you?
You're not drinking one right now, are you?
Not at all. I would never do that. But but this is, as a podiatrist, I get a lot of patients that come in with foot problems related to the fact that they're overweight. I mean, that's just a big percentage of that, right? And you start to talk to them about diet, and they go, it's fine. I use artificial sweeteners, and I'll drink Diet Pepsi, and you just want to jump out the window, right? Is this what you ran into as well?
So, artificial sweeteners are a bad experiment on us, right? You look at us, go, we were the lab rats. Let's test this. Why did we create artificial sweeteners? So that diabetics could have something sweet without having a problem. But actually, we now know that artificial sweeteners actually change the gut microbiome. So you become more glucose intolerant. And what happens then? You become diabetic. Oops.
Wow.
Oopsies.
Wow.
And you know what? The study showed it happened in a week. They became glucose intolerant in their gut microbiome. A week. So, I mean, just from the very face of it, and I will totally go on record that I was an early tab addict. I used to actually, way back when, I'm so dating myself, I used to get my allowance money and walk down to the store because my mother, though she bought me Pop-Tarts and Cocoa Puffs, would not buy artificial sweeteners. So I had to go use my allowance to walk down to the store to get tab.
Wow.
Because I stopped eating all sugar when I was 12. I was like, no more sugar. Of course, I went and ate frozen yogurt and Carob. I thought I was fine, and diet soda.
Right.
And that's really the problem is people are trying to make the right choices. So they say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to have the yogurt with the sugar in it. I'll have the yogurt with the Splenda. I'll have the light version, or I'll have the one with the fruit juice sweetened. Is it fruit juice sweetened? Like apple juice concentrate is worse for you than most other sweeteners because it's so concentrated in fructose, which is the most damaging sugar of all. So again, I wrote that book to really show people it's the impact. Is it making you tired or is it making you energetic? Is it making you store fat or burn it? Is it giving you better focus, or are you having brain fog? And then how do you need to look at sugar? It's not the sugar grams on a package, because all carbohydrates turn to sugar. It's a matter of how quickly your body is doing this. Are you mainlining this sugar? Or are you making it slowly from the food you eat because you're eating an unprocessed high fiber food? And what's going on with fructose? A little bit of fructose in fruit. Hey, fine. Nature provided that with a lot of phytonutrients and fiber. But when you turn it into a soda, by turning it into juice, or you concentrate it, into dry, like, to me, apple juice is worse than a Coke. It's higher in fructose than a Coke. We're all worried about high fructose corn syrup. That's actually the same as table sugar. Look at apple juice concentrate. Apples are the highest fructose fruit. Concentrate that in to a dried apple is a piece of candy. Apple juice is a soda, and apple juice concentrate is the same as any other type of sugar. It's actually a little worse. So the problem is that a food label can lie. You can actually say no sugar added and use fruit juice concentrate.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Wow.
That's
wow.
so evil.
It's evil. It really is,
evil.
Right? I mean,
evil. Yes.
Wow. So is that why why is fructose worse than glucose, though? It's just because you're getting it in such a concentrated format?
Nope. It's metabolized totally different. So all sugars end up as glucose except for fructose. It can turn into glucose and glycogen, but it can only be processed by the liver. So what happens is, and this is why we thought it looked so awesome and everyone was using it, because you'd eat fructose, and because it didn't go into your bloodstream and start triggering the rise of insulin, raising blood sugar, raising insulin, it looked like it was better. The problem is, you actually want to have that insulin rise because it's going to trigger all the satiety signals. So instead, fructose would go straight to the liver. So you get no satiety signals. You don't know you had it. And it's the most glycating sugar, which means that it's actually more aging. Also, it also can cause some gut permeability, which causes a lot of the food intolerances. It's also super sweet, so that's why people are using more of it. But we know for a lot of people, if they eat sweet, they want more sweet.
Right.
But when it gets to the liver, you can induce hypertension by too much fructose. You can induce insulin resistance because of this. So it elevates triglycerides. It leads to fatty liver. It's the worst of the worst. Now, if it goes to the liver and there's space and it can turn into glucose and glycogen, fine. But the liver doesn't have a lot of space. So the minute that glycogen suitcase is full, now it's making fat. So figure if you're eating fructose, it's making fat. Now, for the person who's metabolically healthy, not diabetic, not elevated triglycerides, not insulin resistant, a piece of fruit a day, fine. But fruit is not free food. Somewhere in the Weight Watchers land, we got this idea that, it's all about points, not actually what food quality is, and that we can have as much, fruit's kind of a free food out there, and it's not a free food. This is not like free for all for dessert,
I have to say, I interviewed a Dr. Gundry, Stephen Gundry, about 6 months ago, and up to that point, I had been eating probably 6 fruits a day because I thought I was doing the right thing. As silly as it was. And I didn't realize it. I'd go home, I'd have an apple, I'd have a peach, I'd have a banana. And I thought, look how healthy I am. But that's not exactly the case, right?
Wow. I'm sure he schooled you a bit, right?
Absolutely. No question about it. No question about it. But, wow. So what, in your book, you talk about, I guess, a sugar burner as a type of person and then a fat burner. What's the difference and how does that relate?
Well, here's the big hint. You want to be a fat burner, not a sugar burner. And how do you know? And just think about what we're taught. We're taught to graze. You should eat 6 meals a day, lower your fat, all this crap. You really, what you want to do, and the best indicator is your waist. If you're losing weight but not losing your waist, you're actually making yourself worse, not better. You don't want to be a potato on stilts. So the indicator really of whether you're metabolically healthy is really what's your waist measurement, right? And if you've got a waist measurement, it really, for men, you do not want to be that your waist equals your hips. Should not be the case. That should not be where you are. And for women, it should be at least, your waist should be at least 80% of your hips or less, preferably less. And, for women, they say 34 inches, you're insulin resistant. I like to see a woman smaller than that. And for men, I think it's more like, I think it's 40 inches. But ideally, this needs to be way down, right? Wow. But the big sign is if you need to lose weight and you're losing weight and your waist isn't moving, you are losing muscle, not fat. And that fat around your waist is that endocrine system. It's its own hormone system that's very pro-inflammatory. So it's really problematic. But the way you can tell if you're a fat burner is, do you lose your waist if you're losing weight? Can you go 4 to 6 hours between meals before you need to eat again and do a 12 to 14 hour overnight fast? If every 2 to 3 hours you're starving, you're relying on the incoming food, not stored body fat, for fuel. If you're insulin sensitive and your blood sugar is stable, you should be able to access stored fat for fuel. You shouldn't feel like after 2 hours, you're shaky, you're pissed off, and you better get a cookie.
Right. Wow. That's amazing information. So let me ask you a question. Why is it too, though, that as a younger person, right, it felt like I could eat everything all day long and not gain a weight. And then at the minute I hit like 40 or 45, that became more difficult. All of a sudden the weight just sort of found my belly. It sort of,
it wasn't a magic switch. It was a hormonal shift. So it's very interesting the way we've always looked at weight, which is, if you want to lose weight, eat less, exercise more. That is actually ridiculous. That will work, yes, maybe if you're metabolically totally healthy and young, where all your hormones are playing well. But we really have to think of our body like a chemistry lab, not a bank account. And all of these things are contributing to your body's ability to burn fat and keep yourself insulin sensitive. So you have to look at hormones key. So one of the things that starts to shift is, and it will shift, it used to happen for men around 57. That was like the average age. It's now happening so much younger because of stress. When you're under stress, your body says, you really probably shouldn't make babies right now. Right? So women start to have irregular periods. Men's testosterone lowers. If your testosterone lowers, right, now you're not able to build and hold on to muscle, which is going to lower your metabolism. And if you don't have, right, so you can see what's happening. You build insulin sensitivity in your muscles, so now you're becoming more insulin resistant. You're storing more fat around your waist. Your metabolism is slowing down because you don't have as much muscle mass. And possibly you've got thyroid issues too. Women tend to get more of that than men, but I see a lot of men with thyroid issues too. So you've got to look at like what's going on with my thyroid, what's going on with my sex hormones, what's going on with my adrenals, my sleep, my insulin sensitivity, my genetics, my gut microbiome. And none of this stuff happened overnight, right? The stress adds up, the poor sleep adds up, the food that you ate that fed your gut microbiome. Do you know, it's so interesting. If you've got more bad bacteria in your gut than good bacteria, which so many of us do, you actually extract more calories from the food you eat and store them as fat.
Huh. Unbelievable. Well, take me through the sugar impact diet. What is that? Like, how does that work?
So I created that. Yeah, so it's kind of, I create everything that I do to help someone become their own personal health detective so that they can go through the journey. With the Virgin Diet, it's all about food intolerance and really helping you become your own personal health detective so you can figure out which foods work for you and which foods don't. Now, with the sugar impact diet, it's all about carbohydrate intolerance. I get so many questions about, should I do the keto diet? Should I eat a high carb diet? And I'm like, I don't know. It really depends on your adrenal health, your insulin sensitivity, what you're doing for exercise, if you're recovering from something. And so the sugar impact diet was put together to help people figure out to get rid of their sweet tooth. Because I found for so many people, the cravings were taking them down, to help them resensitize their sweet tooth so they can appreciate the natural sweetness and things and really key in to how many carbohydrates were optimal for them at this time.
Gotcha. Wow. JJ, I know you got to run, so I'm going to just start to wind it down real quick. People that want to learn more about you, learn more about the books, how would they do that?
This is very difficult. jjvirgin.com.
Stop it. All right.
Stop it.
JJ, I tell you what, I'd love to have you back on. So this was awesome. There's just almost not enough time because there's so many questions I have for you. I want to just thank you for being on the show. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you for having me. I super appreciate you.
This episode is sponsored by New Jersey Foot and Ankle Center in Rodale, New Jersey. Remember, when you have a foot problem, you've got a foot doctor in the family. Weekend and evening appointments are available. Call us at 201-261-9445. Once again, that's 201-261-9445. Thanks for listening. Check out the show notes over at drdanspeaks.com. If you're loving the show, head over to iTunes and leave us a review, and we'll catch you next time.